Good afternoon. Welcome to the Analyst. Today we'll be taking up 6 newspaper articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express and discussing them. The handout for the same will be available in the description of this video for your kind perusal. Please have a look at that. The first article that we'll take up is related to India-UK relations, as the British Foreign Secretary is set to meet the Prime Minister today. The second article is related to the startup ecosystem in India, as a write-up in the Hindu analyzed the journey of India's startup industry in the past decade. In the mains value addition section, we'll discuss how to write a case study on corruption in ethics. Additionally, we'll take up 4 articles in the prelims pointers section, which will be helpful for your prelims preparation. The first article is related to India-UK relations, as the British Foreign Secretary is set to meet the Prime Minister Modi. So we'll discuss the significance of India-UK relations, the challenges that the bilateral ties face, and a few suggestions in this regard. We'll put a particular emphasis upon the analysis of the India-UK Free Trade Agreement. This is important in GS2 under the topic Effect of Politics and Policies of Developed and Developing Countries on India's Interests and Indian Diaspora. First, let us start with the significance of India-UK relations. The two countries share historical ties, as India has been a colony of the British, and even after 1950, India has remained a part of the Commonwealth. Although during the Cold War, the relations between the two countries turned sour, because UK criticized the conducting of nuclear tests by India. Thereafter, the relations took a turn for the better, as in 2004, the ties were upgraded to a level of strategic partnership. Now, when we look at the significance of India-UK relations, UK is important for us geopolitically, because UK supports the membership bid of India, the permanent membership bid of India in the United Nations Security Council, and we have cooperation from the side of UK across multilateral fora, for example in G20, Indo-Pacific region, and also even the reconstruction efforts in Afghanistan. We have a disarmament and non-proliferation dialogue with UK. We also have established a joint working group for countering terrorism along with UK. Geostrategically looking also, UK is significant for us because various countries across the globe look at India as an alternative to China today. In an era of geopolitical turmoil, everybody wants to set up a base outside China as well, to diversify their sourcing, to strengthen the supply chains so that the risks are minimized. So India presents that opportunity of China plus one. Therefore, UK is also significant for us because we will get investment from the side of UK. Plus, economically looking also, UK is significant. For example, we have a joint economic and trade committee established since 2005, and the bilateral trade between the two countries is also significant to the tune of $20 billion plus. Also, we send FDI for UK from India as well, and we create jobs in UK. About 5,000 jobs we have created, invested in about 120 projects in UK, significant ones, and we are the 12th largest trading partner for UK. And now that UK has exited from the European Union, these ties become even more significant for UK as well. Plus, for us also, we get an entry point towards the European Union through UK as well. In terms of defense, again, UK is significant for us because we have the Defense and International Security Partnership put in place since 2015, and we import arms from UK also. There are various UK companies which are involved in the manufacturing of defense equipments and defense parts. For example, importing some of the parts which are involved in the manufacturing of Jaguar, Mirage aircrafts, etc. In the nuclear sector as well, there is cooperation between the two countries. For example, the Civil Nuclear Cooperation Declaration was signed in 2010, and subsequently the Nuclear Collaboration Agreement was also put in place in 2015. In the education sector also, there is cooperation. For example, through the UK-India Education and Research Initiative, the mobility program, the Study in India initiative is promoted by UK to send the UK nationals, students from UK to study in India. Similarly, from India also about 50,000 Indian students are sent to UK to study there. There is cooperation in the health sector as well. For example, for the development of vaccines. Like the development of COVID-19 vaccine was done simultaneously in UK as well as in India. For example, there was collaboration between AstraZeneca and Serum Institute of India also. Plus, in terms of climate as well, there is cooperation between the two countries. For example, the India-UK Green Growth Equity Fund as well as the partnership with UK in terms of One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative, which is led by India, and UK is also participating in it now. In terms of culture and diaspora also, there is significance of UK. For example, the Nehru Center has been established in London, and the Indian diaspora in UK is also significant. It amounts to about 1.5 million people of Indian origin residing in UK. Now coming to the free trade agreement first. The free trade agreement is significant for both India as well as UK. Let us analyze it category wise. In terms of the export sectors from India, there are exports happening from India to UK. For example, the exports in textile, pharma products, agriculture, they set to benefit because the tariffs are reduced. For example, there is tariff elimination for textiles, apparels, gems, jewelry, leather, machinery, auto parts, pharma, chemicals, processed foods, marine products, etc. Similarly, UK also seeks to benefit from it, as it will get duty-free access for about 64% of its exports to India, including the exports of alcoholic beverages from UK to India, cosmetics, processed food, digital services, etc. When we look at the tariff impact from the side of India, the exports will be facing zero tariff or reduced tariff for 99% of Indian exports. From the side of UK also, the average tariffs which are imposed by India upon the imports from UK has been lowered from 15% to just about 3%. So the agreement will be mutually beneficial in terms of the lowering of tariffs. Similarly, it will promote the growth of MSMEs and the regional growth in India. How? Because there will be the export boost which the manufacturing clusters in India will get. And the MSMEs, they also account for a significant share in the exports from India. Therefore, it will lead to employment generation through MSMEs. Also, UK will get the access to the market of India, the market access for the UK brands. In the professional mobility also, both countries benefit from the free trade agreement, as the Indian professionals, their professional qualifications will be recognized in the UK also. Also, UK will go for visa relaxation for Indians, and also the social security waivers will be provided for the Indians from the side of UK. Similarly, UK also benefits from the free trade agreement, as it will get access to the Indian professionals, more than 60,000 Indian professionals who are skilled. Therefore, these Indian professionals will fill in the skill gaps which are existing in the UK. Therefore, they will get access to the highly skilled professionals which can work in the service sector in UK. Similarly, in the green technology and energy sector also, both countries benefit from the FTA, because India will get benefit from the investments from the side of UK in the green energy sector in India. Investments will come in the solar energy sector, hydrogen, battery technology, and the EV infrastructure in India, which is crucial for India's transitioning from the fossil-based energy to non-fossil based energy, renewable energy infrastructure. Similarly, UK also benefits from it because UK gets the entry into the Indian market, the Indian renewable energy market. In the agriculture and food processing sector also, both countries benefit, as for India, the tariffs are brought down. The duty-free treatment is given for 95% of India's agriculture tariff lines. Therefore, it will give a boost to the exports of agriculture products from India to UK. For example, the boost for the export of basmati, spices, tea, seafood, etc. The UK also benefits from it. For example, the sanitary and phytosanitary concerns which were there from the side of UK, they will be addressed, and therefore now the regulations will be streamlined further. In terms of marines and fisheries products exports from India, they will also benefit, as India will get duty-free access for about 99% of the marine exports from India, and UK will get the access for the premium seafood which it can import from India. Similarly, in terms of GI, the geographical indicators, there will be protection provided for the Indian GI products, whereas UK will benefit as it will get the preferential access for the Indian GI products. Similarly, what will be the consumer impact? For India, the tariffs will be reduced, therefore the imports will be cheaper, therefore for the Indian consumers, the end products will be cheaper. For example, the UK luxury car imports, they will be cheaper. The spirits, wines, alcohols imported from UK, they will be cheaper for the end products, the consumers. And for UK also, the products will be cheaper, the consumers will get cheaper Indian textiles, pharmaceuticals, processed foods, as well as jewelry. The two countries also gain strategically from the free trade agreement. How? For example, India gets the access to the European Union via the UK. UK serves as a hub in between or the entry point into the European Union because of the India-UK free trade agreement. Similarly, UK also gets to benefit from it. For example, in the foreseeable future, India may be becoming a defense manufacturing hub. As the global defense manufacturing giants, they look at India as a probable option for setting up of the defense manufacturing bases. Therefore, UK will also benefit from it because of the free trade agreement between India and UK. Now, what are the benefits that India will derive broadly from the free trade agreement with the UK? Primarily, we'll get the market access. We'll get the access of the market of the UK. Therefore, we'll be able to export to UK, and our exports will be more competitive in comparison to the exports from the other South Asian economies because the tariffs will be reduced. Upon the exports from India, tariffs will be lower, particularly in the sectors textile, pharmaceuticals, and agriculture. It will also lead to employment creation in India because the exports will increase, therefore the production will increase, therefore employment generation will happen. Similarly, the mobility will be better, the mobility of the professionals from India to UK. Therefore, the IT sector that will flourish, the service sector that will flourish. Similarly, the foreign direct investment, the FDI coming into India, that will increase, particularly in the sectors technology, infrastructure, renewable energy, etc. Strategically also will benefit from it as the India-UK free trade agreement. It can serve as a template for signing of free trade agreement with the European Union also. Now, what are the benefits from UK from the free trade agreement? It will also get the access to the market of India. It will be able to export whiskey, alcohol, wines, spirits to India, also export the financial services to India. Similarly, after its exit from the European Union, the free trade agreement of UK with India becomes even more significant as India is seen as an investment opportunity. India provides a golden investment opportunity for the wealthy professionals from UK, and this will also elevate the partnership between the two countries. The strategic partnership, it can also be extrapolated towards cooperation in the global forums. But there are certain challenges that the India-UK FTA faces. For example, there is demand from the side of India for more work visas, that the Indian professionals, they should get more work visas from the side of UK. Similarly, for better social security, the worker benefits in the UK, there should be more. And the rules of origin requirements. As by bringing in the rules of origin requirements, the UK, when it is going for relaxing of the tariffs, that when the tariff benefits are sought by India, simultaneously it is going for the local sourcing requirements as well by putting in place the rules of origin. Similarly, India also demands that India should be exempted from the levying of the carbon border tax, which is imposed by UK. Now, there are certain concerns with respect to the India-UK free trade agreement, particularly in the public health sector. For example, there are certain risks, for example, the tariff-free entry of the UK-made processed foods, the processed foods which are high in fats, salt and sugar. When the tariffs are lowered on the processed foods containing high fat and salt and sugar, then the consumption will increase. The demand increases because the prices are lowered. When the consumption of such foods increases, the processed foods increases, it leads to increased burden of the lifestyle diseases. For example, the increase in obesity, increase in diabetes and other lifestyle related diseases. Plus, there is aggressive marketing which is done for such high fat, salt and sugar foods in India, and the cheap, unhealthy foods, their consumption will increase because of the aggressive marketing by the Indian importers. Plus, the regulations in India, they are weak, unlike the UK. In UK, there are strict regulations. For example, there are bans upon the ads regarding the foods which are high in fat, salt and sugar before 9 p.m. Plus, there are traffic light nutrition labels where it is clearly visible what is the amount of nutrition in that processed food. In India, rather, there was a proposed mandatory front of pack warning labels. That was also stalled because of the industry lobbying, which wanted to introduce the star ratings, which were more confusing in nature rather than going for front of the pack warning labels. Similarly, we need to learn the lessons from Mexico. In Mexico, there was a surge in the consumption of the HFSS foods after the signing of the North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement. And this led to the rise in the obesity, rise in diabetes and other related diseases because of the high HFSS foods consumption in Mexico. Although they later on brought in the soda tax to decrease the consumption of the HFSS foods, but that was too late. Similarly, there will be rising lifestyle diseases burden in India. Already we are facing a high burden of the obesity and diabetes, and we need to prioritize. Rather than focusing upon only the economic gains, we need to look at the public health as well. Because if the diseases burden increases in India, the non-communicable diseases burden, then there also the government spending will have to be increased. That will also put a burden upon the public exchequer. Therefore, certain safeguards are needed. For example, mandatory warning labels. For example, we can follow the example of Chile, which mandates the warning labels like the large black octagonal labels. Or we can ban the ads which are targeting children, the ads for the HFSS foods in India, or going for alternative school meals which are healthier, and the strengthening of the public health oversight in the trade negotiations also. Now, what are the challenges that the India-UK relations face in general? There are various concerns. For example, the stand on the Ukraine war. Britain has been criticizing the Russian invasion of Ukraine from the initial phases itself. But India maintained a rather pragmatic stance because India imported oil from Russia. The Russian oil imports for India were cheaper, although USA was threatening to impose more and more sanctions upon India. But pragmatically speaking, we are dependent upon imports regarding our energy needs, regarding our crude oil needs, as about 80% is imported. Similarly, there are concerns with respect to the ties of Britain with Pakistan, because Britain exports weapons to both India and Pakistan. It sells arms to both India and Pakistan. The ties of Britain with China is also a matter of concern, because for India, the Belt and Road Initiative, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, they are affecting India's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Therefore, India does not have engagements with the Belt and Road Initiative, whereas UK has significant engagements in the Belt and Road Initiative of China. Similarly, there are concerns that UK harbors Khalistanis, that there are allegations that UK harbors Khalistanis and Sikh separatists which are directly conflicting with India's territorial integrity. Plus, regarding the migration and mobility agreement, there is demands for more visas, more work visas for the Indian professionals. Plus, there is anti-colonial resentment also in certain sects in India that sees certain partition gifts which were given by UK to India. For example, the Kashmir issue. Similarly, there has been progress in the defense ties, but it has been slow, because India prefers the G2G agreements. India prefers the government-to-government agreements, particularly in the defense ties, whereas UK has been slow in the adopting of G2G agreements even in the defense sector. Plus, regarding the extradition request, the extradition from UK to India has been delayed on occasions and sometimes even denied. For example, the delays regarding the extradition of Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, etc. So what are the suggestions that we can give regarding the better ties between India and UK? First, the agreement on migration and mobility needs to be streamlined. Plus, we need to revive multilateralism so that there is cooperation across multilateral fora, and multilateralism is beneficial for India in the long run. For example, the WTO, the UNFCCC, etc. and the extradition process that also needs to be streamlined. Plus, the two countries can engage more in the Indian Ocean region and the Indo-Pacific region as well, so that the free and open Indo-Pacific, the Indian vision for the Indo-Pacific is also followed, and there is cooperation between the two countries in the technology sector, for example, artificial intelligence, as well as in the environment like climate change. There is a mains practice question also. Discuss the significance of India-UK bilateral ties in the contemporary global context. Analyze the potential benefits and challenges of the free trade agreement between the two countries. Please try to write it. The second article is related to the startup ecosystem in India, how the startup industry has fared over the past decade in India. As a write-up has appeared in the Hindu, analyzing the growth of the startup industry from 2016 onwards in India. So we'll discuss the achievements of startup ecosystem in India, the challenges that the startups face, and a few suggestions in this regard. This is important in GS3 under the topic Indian economy. First, let us start with the definitions. An enterprise is termed as a startup in India if it has been established less than 10 years ago, and it can be registered either as a private limited company or as a registered partnership firm or as a limited liability partnership, and its annual turnover must not exceed 100 crore rupees in any of the previous financial years, and it must not be formed either by splitting up or reconstructing any existing enterprise. It must be established from scratch, and it should be based upon innovation and scalability, that it should be working towards innovation, and the model should be scalable to increase the wealth creation to lead to employment generation also. Now, how does the Startup India support the startups, the action plan under it? It provides the hand-holding support in terms of the legal support, that self-certification is allowed for the startups. They are allowed to go for self-certification for the compliance of 9 environmental and labor laws through the Startup India web portal. Also, the Startup India action plan provides them support for the intellectual property rights, that it fast tracks the startup patent applications. It is also provided the expediting of the IP applications through the SIP scheme, the Startup India Intellectual Property Rights Scheme, and a panel of facilitators is also appointed to assist in the filing of the IP applications, and the government bears the facilitation cost, and 80% rebate is provided in the filing of the patents. For the exit as well, the startups have an advantage as per the bankruptcy code. The startups with simple debt structure, they can be wound up within 90 days as well. Additionally, they get various funding and incentives also. For example, a fund of funds has been established under the SIDBI, the Small Industries Development Bank of India, and it has a corpus of 10,000 crores providing for the funding for the startups. The credit guarantee is also provided so that the startups, they can get the loans without collaterals also. The credit guarantee mechanism is provided through the National Credit Guarantee Trust Company. Plus, they get the tax exemptions also, that they are exempted from income tax, paying of income tax for 3 years after their establishment, and the capital gains tax exemption is also provided for the startups if they are investing such gains in the government recognized fund of funds, etc. Plus, they get the priority in terms of the public procurement also, that for the public procurement there are exemptions created from prior experience in case the procurement is done from the startups. The startups get the incubation support also. For example, innovation centers are established, Atal Tinkering Labs are established, technology business incubators are established. Similarly, they get various grants and incentives, like Nidhi provides 10 lakh rupees to 20 students for innovation from the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development Centers. Similarly, the Uchtar Avishkar Yojana provides 250 crore rupees per annum to foster very high quality research among the IIT students. Similarly, various events are held, for example, the organizing of startup festivals, etc. Now, let us also observe a few specific features under the Startup India. Primarily, it provides for the funding. The funding, for example, through the fund of funds for the startups, it is established under the Small Industries Development Bank of India. It provides the funds to the alternative investment funds. These alternative investment funds are SEBI registered. These alternative investment funds further invest in the startups To ensure that the startups get early funding also, there is the Startup India Seed Fund Scheme. The Startup India Seed Fund Scheme, through this the fund is provided if the proof of concept is provided, so that initially it can be promoted. To ensure that the startups get the access to the investors, there is the Startup India Investor Connect portal, through which they can connect with the venture capitalists. To ensure that the risk is mitigated, there is the credit guarantee which is provided, the credit guarantee scheme for the startups. To ensure that there is a National Credit Guarantee Trust Company. Similarly, to ensure that there is mentorship for the startups, there is the National Mentorship Portal, the MARG portal, and this functions like a complete ecosystem. For that, there is the Startup India Hub, and there is the concept of competitive federalism as well, which is promoted. For example, the states, they are ranked on the basis of the startup ranking framework as well. Now, what are the achievements of the Startup India? Let us observe that as well. Currently, over 2 lakh startups have been recognized by the DPIIT, and over 21 lakhs jobs have been created, and over 45% startups have at least one woman director or partner, and the number of startups we can observe over the past decade, it has been increasing continuously. In terms of the ecosystem growth, India has become the third largest startup ecosystem globally, and the number of unicorns in India, they are also the third largest. Plus, in terms of investment, again there is significant investment, as the venture capital investment in 2024 was more than $13 billion. Similarly, India is the second largest venture capital destination in the Asia Pacific. Plus, it leads to job creation also. For example, more than 2.1 million direct jobs have been created because of the startups. Plus, there are certain leading sectors also which lead the job creation, for example, IT and healthcare. And it leads to innovation growth in India, as more than 2,000 patents have been filed through the startups, and there are more than 28,000 trademarks also. There are more than 10,000 Atal Tinkering Labs established to ensure that they are incubated, and the UPI, that accounts for about 80% of India's retail payments. Why? Because of the competing UPI apps, for example, Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm, Bheem, etc. Let us also observe the trends in the startups in India. The growth in the number of DPIIT startups in India has been significant. As we can observe, in 2016, the DPIIT recognized startups were just about 3%, and in 2025, it has increased to about 77%. Similarly, the number of startups, the growth, if we see, it has been maximum in the tier 3 cities. The growth has been exponential in the tier 3 cities from 2016 onwards. Similarly, when we compare the growth rate in terms of the male founders versus the female founders, the compounded annual growth rate for the female founders is about 20%, whereas for the male founders it is about 14% in terms of percentage. But there are certain challenges that the startups in India still face. For example, there are startup failures also. More than 5,000 startups in India have failed, more than 5,000 DPIIT recognized startups, that is about 3.3% of them. And there are policy gaps and early implementation issues also. For example, there has been a delayed disbursement of the funds from the Fund of Funds, and the Startup India Hub has a lower penetration in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, whereas the growth in the tier 3 cities has been exponential. Similarly, there was the issue of the angel tax also, which was imposed upon the angel investments, although after 2023 it has been cured. There are various regulatory hurdles as well. For example, the ease of doing business. The ease of doing business rankings of the World Bank had highlighted earlier that there are various hurdles, for example, in terms of getting property, taxation as well as registration, and the application process and revenue criteria is another hurdle. For example, if the annual revenue increases to more than 100 crores in any financial year, it is not getting any benefits of being a startup after that. And there is fragmented regulation across the states, as there are multiple bodies and the regulation is fragmented across bodies. The access to funding is another challenge, because particularly in the early stage there is poor funding, and in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities there is lower funding. The domestic lending rates, they are higher. Therefore, sometimes these startups, they go for external commercial borrowings, but now the rupee is weakening. Therefore, their repayments, they become even more difficult. They have to pay more in terms of rupee. And also there are various risk averse venture capitalists also. Because of being risk averse, they rather invest in services rather than investing in manufacturing facilities, as the startup failure rates also, if you observe, the maximum failure rates, they are in the IT sector itself. Similarly, there are skill gaps also. For example, the skill development that has mainly happened in the lower end skills. The skill development programs in India have also focused upon the lower end skill development rather than developing skills in the higher end advanced technologies, for example, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain technology, or data analytics. Plus, there is the issue of unemployable graduates, as about 70% of the engineering graduates in India are termed as unemployable. They need further training, and the skill development schemes, they also focus upon the lower end schemes. There is infrastructural weakness also. For example, we were ranked at the 38th position in the Logistics Performance Index in 2023 because of poor logistics, customs, etc. Now, let us also observe some of the other schemes which were floated by the government, which are strengthening India's startup ecosystem. There is the Atal Innovation Mission, that is to foster the innovation culture nationwide. It was promoted through the Niti Aayog. There is the Genesis, the Gen Next support for innovative startups, that is to promote the deep tech startups in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technologies. There is the TIDE scheme, the Technology Incubation and Development of Entrepreneurships, that is to promote the ICT startups incubation and to scale them up. There is the Meaty Startup Hub also to integrate the tech startup ecosystem, and also the Nidhi, the National Initiative for Developing and Harnessing Innovations, that is to support the science and technology related startups from the idea stage to the final market stage. There is the SWEP program, the Startup Village Entrepreneurship Program, to promote the rural entrepreneurship, that is under the Ministry of Rural Development. And the Aspire scheme, the scheme for promotion of innovation, rural industries and entrepreneurship, to strengthen the rural enterprise incubators. And the Prime Minister's Employment Generation Program under the Ministry of MSME, to provide subsidized credit for self-employment. Please remember the names of the concerned nodal ministries also for prelims. Now, what are the suggestions that we can give for the startup ecosystem in India? First, we need to build the innovation tech bridges. For that, we can connect with the leading hubs. For example, connecting the Indian startups with Silicon Valley in USA, Shenzhen in China, and the knowledge exchange should happen therefore with the global hubs, and they should get the global market access and collaboration in the research and development also. For that, there can be collaboration between government to businesses, and there can be international incubators also which can be set up. For example, we can follow the Singapore model. Singapore started building links with the global tech players first to provide its startups the foundation, the ecosystem for them to grow and for international collaboration. Similarly, the skill development has to be done in line with the industry demands. For example, the skill development in AI, blockchain, data science. For that, we can follow the German model. The Germany, they adopted the dual education system by providing for the classical classroom learning, along with that apprenticeship also. And we can develop the regional ecosystems. The regional ecosystems in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, to develop the digital infrastructure there, so that targeted financial incentives can be provided for developing the ecosystem in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. This will also lead to the decongestion in the tier 1 and the metropolitan cities. For that, we can establish the co-working spaces in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, or the regional technology parks, software parks in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. We can follow the South Korean model in this regard. South Korea established sector-specific clusters away from Seoul, the regional technology parks, regional clusters. Similarly, we can go for periodic review and the evaluation framework of the ecosystem. For that, we can balance the consumer-focused ventures and the deep tech innovations. Along with that, we can analyze the investment origins. By analyzing the investment origins only, we can come up with policies to encourage the Indian investors to invest in the startup ecosystem. Plus, we need to address the policy implementation gaps also. For addressing the gap, there must be a feedback loop. The feedback between the policymakers, the industrialists, that is the founders, and the investors, plus the fund access mechanisms, they should be simplified so that there are no fragmentations or the delays in the disbursement of the funds from the fund of funds. Plus we can establish better physical and digital infrastructure, and the logistical bottlenecks, they can be removed to improve logistics, to improve transport, to improve customs procedures, etc. There is a mains practice question also. Evaluate the performance of the Startup India program since its launch. Discuss the challenges hindering its effectiveness. Suggest measures to strengthen India's startup ecosystem for inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Please try to write it. Now in the mains value addition section, we'll discuss the preparation for the case studies in ethics. How do we write case studies in ethics? We'll take the example of a corruption related case study. First, you look at the PYQs. The previous year questions are your best friend. From the analysis of the PYQs, you will be able to bring out a few themes which are recurring in nature. You can identify 8 to 10 recurring themes which are being asked by UPSC time and again. Once you have identified the themes, you can prepare a skeleton framework beforehand. And when you have the skeleton framework ready and then you are presented with that case study, you can fill in the facts and circumstances provided in that case study in your framework and generate a good answer to the case study. You won't be able to do it for all the 6 case studies which will be asked, but if you get even 2 or 3 similar case studies to the frameworks for the 8 to 10 themes that you have prepared in advance, you will get definitely an edge. So what do you do once you identify the theme? You identify first the dilemmas that you may face probably. For example, you are presented with a case study related to disaster management. You can think of the probable dilemmas that you will face as a district magistrate in such a situation. For example, saving maximum number of lives versus saving the lives of VVIPs, or saving lives versus saving of material resources, etc. Then you think of a thinker that you can connect to that case study, a quote that you can write in that case study. You can come up with a flow chart that you can draw in that case study, or you can think of the probable steps that you can give, the solutions, etc., decoding it further, the short-term steps plus the long-term steps, etc. So you can prepare either in a tabular format or in a flowchart format a framework kind of a solution for yourself which will be useful for writing the actual case study. For example, let us apply this for a corruption related case study. What can be the dilemmas? Like the job security versus tolerating corruption. On the one side, your job security will be at stake if you highlight that. On the other side, you will be tolerating corruption. And it can be personal relations versus the professional oath. The professional oath to stay upright versus the personal relations that if you expose someone, your personal relations may turn into enmity. Similarly, economics versus humanity. For example, it may be your own greed versus humanity that you have to stay upright, or quitting from the job if there is no other solution because you are going for exposing someone, whistleblowing, etc., versus continuing in the spirit of public service. So you can think of the dilemmas beforehand. You can also prepare the ideas beforehand that you are going to utilize in writing the answer of that case study. For example, when you are trying to connect a thinker to the case study answer, in the present case, you can present the debate between the approach of Immanuel Kant versus the approach of Kautilya. Kant argues that the imperative behind the action must be categorical. He argues that the action in itself must be judged whether it is ethical or unethical. The consequences do not matter. Whereas Kautilya goes to the extent of saying that the corruption greases the wheel of the system, therefore the consequences also matter. You can also present the Buddhist viewpoint. Buddha presented the eightfold path. One of them is right livelihood. Therefore, livelihood must be earned through righteous means, through legitimate and moral means. Livelihood must not be earned through illegitimate, immoral or unethical means. Therefore, corruption must be avoided. You can present various quotes and ideas like right is right even if it is only one doing it, or the Indian philosophical ethos arguing for Nishkam Karm. You can present the ideas from Bhagavad Gita like Karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan. You can write quotes from Indian philosophers and thinkers like Tiruvalluvar. Tiruvalluvar used to say that goodness seeks no return. After all, what return can the earth give to the rain-bearing clouds? or the ideas like neki kar darya mein dal, be the change that you want to see in the world, or the greed has no limits. The earth has enough for everybody's need but not enough for anybody's greed. And the idea that the civil servants, they must be loyal to the spirit of the constitution, therefore they must uphold the social contract as well. The next article is related to the agriculture in a weak monsoon, that is the climate resilient agriculture. This is important in prelims under the topic economic and social development. First, let us observe what is the need for a climate resilient agriculture. The Indian agriculture is vulnerable. It is vulnerable because of the erratic monsoons. It is dependent upon the monsoon vagaries, and therefore sometimes there are droughts, sometimes there are floods. Therefore it causes the heat stress and it causes adverse impact upon the soil health as well as the availability of water, both groundwater as well as surface water. Plus the proportion of farming in India which is rain fed, it is more than 50%. About 51% of India's net sown area is covered through the rain-fed farming, and it contributes about 40% of the food production in India. It also is important for ensuring our food security because the rain-fed rice yields in India are estimated to decline by 47% by 2080. Similarly, the wheat yields in the rain-fed areas in India are estimated to drop by 40% by 2080 again. And simultaneously, there is the population growth in India. Therefore, the demand for the food consumption will also increase. And there are limits to the conventional farming also, because the conventional farming is input intensive. Therefore, there are rising input costs in agriculture. And simultaneously there is the usage of various chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers, etc., which in the long run reduces the productivity of the soil. And there is resource stress also, because the agriculture is the largest consumer of fresh water. 80% of the freshwater consumption in India goes to agriculture. And it is important, the climate resilient agriculture in India is important for also economic needs and strategic needs, because our food bill needs to be brought down. We are importing food also, and the livelihoods also need to be sustained. For that, the agriculture needs to be sustainable. Now, what are the strategies for the climate resilient agriculture? First, in terms of the crops. The crops, they must be climate resilient. For example, the scuba rice, it can survive underwater also for weeks. Similarly, the crops, they must be diversified. We must move away from monocropping rather than go for the diversification of the cropping patterns to ensure that the agriculture is climate resilient. For example, sowing of millets in the rain-fed regions, in the dryland areas. Simultaneously, we need to protect water availability because we can use the drip irrigation rather than flood irrigation, rainwater harvesting, precision irrigation, etc., to reduce the consumption of water for the irrigation needs in agriculture. Simultaneously, we can go for the soil health management. For example, no-till farming can be adopted, cover cropping, organic inputs can be utilized in agriculture. How will it help? It will prevent the erosion of the soil, it will enhance the moisture retention in the soil through cover cropping, and it will also increase the soil carbon content as well. Plus, we can also adopt the agroforestry systems. In the agroforestry, there is the planting of trees along with the crops. There is planting of trees also along with the crops as well as the rearing of livestock. It provides the shade as well as wind protection and also improves the microclimate in the region, bringing down the temperatures, therefore bringing down the energy needed for the cooling in that region. Plus, we can adopt the technology as well. For example, early warning systems, AI-driven advisories, etc. For that, we can provide the weather forecasts in advance to reduce the vulnerability of the Indian agriculture. What are the initiatives taken by the government so far for the climate resilient agriculture in India? There is the National Innovations for the Climate Resilient Agriculture, which provides the technologies, the crop varieties and the farming practices. For that, it gives demonstrations. The demonstrations for the location specific solutions For example, the direct seeded rice, zero till wheat, etc. Plus there is the National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, which focuses upon the soil health management and the improvement in the water use efficiency. There is Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, which promotes the usage of biofertilizers, biopesticides, again to improve the soil health and to improve the resilience as well. There is the various technology missions, for example, Digital Agriculture Mission, AgriStack, Soil Health Cards, etc. They help in the promotion of the precision agriculture, therefore making agriculture climate resilient in future. The next article is related to Mountbatten Plan. This is important in prelims under the topic History of India and Indian National Movement. The British colonial rule had deteriorated after the World War II, because it led to an economic strain on the British. Even before that, there was the failure of the Cripps mission, and there was the launching of the Quit India movement, and simultaneously there were communal riots in India, and the British did not want to take responsibility for that as well. Therefore, June 3rd, 1947, there was a proposal, the Mountbatten Plan. It served as a framework for the partition and for the transfer of power. Now, first let us observe what were the provisions of the Mountbatten Plan. It proposed to create, out of the British India, 2 independent dominions. And the independence for Bengal was denied. The accession of Hyderabad to Pakistan was also rejected. The plan proposed autonomy and sovereignty for the 2 independent dominions, that they could draft their own constitutions. And the princely states, they could join either India or Pakistan. They were given the option to join either India or Pakistan, but based upon geographical contiguity and the wishes of the people. Therefore, separate constituent assemblies were to be set up, and those separate constituent assemblies were free to draft their own constitutions for the 2 independent dominions. Simultaneously, the boundary commissions were established to demarcate the borders, and the Punjab and Bengal legislative assemblies, they were to vote in separate groups, Hindus and Muslims, on the partition, and through a simple majority itself, it was to be decided whether these provinces would be partitioned or not. Whereas Sindh was to make its own decision through legislation, and the referendums were to be conducted in the Northwest Frontier Province and the Sylhet district. And the independence date was also decided by the Mountbatten Plan, that is August 15, 1947. Now, what were the reactions to the Mountbatten Plan? The Congress was initially opposed to the idea of the dominion status, because it was against the Purn Swaraj Resolution of 1929. But it accepted the Mountbatten Plan because it proposed a peaceful and quick transfer of power, and at that time there were communal riots, and therefore the communal violence needed to be contained. Therefore, the Mountbatten Plan was accepted. The Muslim League, that was quite happy, it welcomed it because it fulfilled the demand for Pakistan. The next article is related to the weakening of the rupee. This is important in prelims under the topic Economic and Social Development. Rupee has been sliding, especially over the past half a decade. For example, in 2022, it was around 74 against the dollar, and now it has crossed 95 against the dollar. So why has the rupee been weakening? First, there are the domestic factors. For example, the widening of the current account deficit. Because the imports are more than the exports, it causes a pressure upon the forex reserves and also causes therefore the currency depreciation. We have a huge energy import bill. We import crude oil, which causes more demand for the US dollars. Simultaneously, there has been a sell-off by the foreign institutional investors and the foreign portfolio investors. Why? Because the valuations in the Indian stock market were at a high, particularly in September 2024, and after that there has been a sell-off. Another reason behind the sell-off has been the returns in the US. They look attractive. The US assets as well as US stock markets. The importers, they have also been buying in advance. The importers who import goods from the other countries, they have been using dollars, demanding dollars to buy in advance. That is a kind of a precautionary demand because they know that they are going to import the goods, and the rupee has been falling continuously. This creates a further pressure on the Indian rupee. Also, the export competitiveness is sluggish. The IT sector, the pharma sector, they benefit because they are exporting from India, but there are certain exports which also rely upon the imported components also. They have been hit adversely. Simultaneously, there has been inflation and growth headwinds also. Although the long-term growth story for India remains strong, but the near-term story does not look as strong. Plus, there are external and global factors also. For example, the continuous threat of the tariffs being imposed by the USA, the geopolitical situation, for example, the wars in the Middle East, various conflicts, that also causes a pressure upon the Indian rupee, because there has been a sentiment which is risk averse, that the global players, the investors, they wish to invest more in the US assets, more safe havens, etc. And there are supply chain anxieties also because of the possible cutting off of the supply routes. Plus, we have the crude prices which have been rising, and simultaneously we are dependent upon the imports only. 80 to 85% of our crude oil needs. There is a strengthening of US dollar also. Despite the US Federal Reserve beginning the rate cut cycle, the dollar has rather strengthened. Why? Because it is a reserve currency, and in a time of geopolitical flux, people run towards the reserve currency, and it is still treated as a safe haven asset. Simultaneously, there are monetary policy related factors also. For example, the US Fed increases the interest rates. It causes the dollar assets to look more attractive. The US debt funds, they look more attractive because of the increase in the interest rates there. Therefore, it leads to the capital outflows from India further. The FPI and FIIs from India, they sell from here and they go to the US debt funds. What has been the RBI stance? It has adopted a neutral policy stance in the past, as the repo rate was kept unchanged for most part in 2025, as they prioritize the domestic liquidity management and growth rather than going for the prioritization of the saving of the Indian currency from further depreciation. So what are the consequences of weakening rupee? First, the consequences on the Indian consumers. It causes an imported inflation because the Indian rupee becomes weak. Therefore, the oil marketing companies, they need to pay more dollars for getting the same amount of crude oil, and that higher cost, it is passed on to the final consumers. It causes further inflation in India. The cost of living, that increases because the price of imports increases. It erodes the purchasing power of Indians, and it also eats into the savings of the households. Simultaneously, the Indians need to cut down upon their foreign travel, foreign education, because the Indian currency falls. What has been the impact on the businesses and the corporates? The corporates who have taken loans from outside, their debt servicing cost increases. The external commercial borrowings, if they are dollar denominated, if they have been borrowed from outside, they have to pay more in terms of the Indian rupees, and it has different impact upon the importers versus the exporters. The importers are affected adversely, whereas the exporters benefit from the depreciation of the currency. So what is the macroeconomic impact because of the weakening of the rupee? Primarily, it causes the trade deficit and it adversely impacts the forex reserves, because the RBI has to go for the intervention to save the Indian rupee from falling further. RBI goes for spot intervention by selling the US dollars and buying rupees from the market, and it causes a reduction in the forex buffer. The capital flight is also caused due to it. It is triggered because there is withdrawal by the FPI and FIIs. This becomes a self-perpetuating cycle of depreciation, because when they sell, the rupee falls further, then they want to sell even more. It causes a subsidy burden also on the government, because the government spending on the fuel and fertilizer subsidies will increase because the import costs increase. This causes more fiscal deficit. This pushes our goal of $5 trillion economy further down the line, because a weak rupee will lead to the shrinking of the economy in the dollar terms, and it is estimated that every 1 rupee depreciation against the dollar causes a loss of about $50 billion from India's nominal GDP in the dollar terms. The next article is related to National Human Rights Commission. This is important in prelims under the topic Indian polity and governance. The NHRC protects and promotes the human rights in India. It operates under the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993, and it functions in conformity with the Paris Principles 1991. What is its composition? It has a chairperson who is either an ex-Chief Justice of India or a Supreme Court judge, and it has 5 members comprising of 1 Supreme Court judge, 1 Chief Justice of a High Court, and 3 members having knowledge of or practical experience in the matters relating to human rights, and at least 1 member is a woman. The appointment committee for the National Human Rights Commission comprises of the Prime Minister, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the Minister for Home Affairs, the two leaders of oppositions, the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha and the leader of opposition in Rajya Sabha, as well as the deputy chairman in the Rajya Sabha. The term of office is 3 years or up to the age of 70 years. The removal of the NHRC members can be done by the President after inquiry by the Supreme Court in case it is on the ground of proved misbehavior or incapacity, or otherwise on the grounds of insolvency, paid employment outside the duties, infirmity of mind or body, or unsound mind if he has been declared so by the competent court, or conviction or sentence for an offence based upon moral turpitude. Thank you.